Welcome to our Share and Torah Anytime. Now, if you've been following what we were talking about last week, how all of the parshas in the Torah, there's a theme. It's like parts of one big whole, of one big idea. So we were talking about how from the Meraglim, as the stories in the Torah are going on, it's describing something which goes on in our minds. That means it's not only something that happened historically, it's more something that internally always transpires to us again and again. And the question is, what do we do when you had Gewalt plans? Yiddish trying to go into Eretz Yisrael. A few days before there's the story of the Meraglim, they mess up. And now Hashem tells them, you're not going in for 40 years. Not only aren't you going in for 40 years, you're not going in at all. Your children are going to go in, so all of your plans fall apart. And we're confronted by that many times in life. We want A, and then B happens. So there's responses, human responses, that every person has to deal with. One of the responses is the next story in the Torah where you're talking about the Mapilim Lalos. That there was this Yidden who said, Hashem, we're going to get to Eretz Yisrael anyway. Shortcuts. Those shortcuts end up that the Mapilim said, we're going, Mapilim Lalos, we're going to get up there. It didn't work. They get killed by the Canaanim, the Amalekim. There's another response people have, which is they throw in the towel. They say, it's not fair, this is not for me, this is too complicated, I didn't sign up for this, too extreme. And then they go into the world of the Mekoshish Eitzim, the Mechal Shabbos, and they break the structure and the rules. That also doesn't end up really nice. The third response that people have is when they go into the Koirach zone. And the Koirach zone is when a person says, Hashem, okay, I'm with you, I'm in for the 40-year ride, I'm not running away, no shortcuts, but I'm going to control it. That also doesn't end up really nice. You end up in the ground. The world opens up under you. And that's something we all deal with. All of these are natural responses to phenomena in the world. The next parshas Chukas, comes with a new insight, the next layer to it. And the question is that everybody wants to know is that this Parah Aduma, this red heifer, it's a choik. So it's Chukas HaTorah. And everybody knows why is it called a choik? Because it doesn't have a tam. Chuka chokakti gzeiruhu melafanai ein lecha reshus laharer achareo. It's just, this is the way it is. But on the other hand, the Bitzkel Vurke, all the great masters ask this question, that what do you mean? Rashi brings as a Medrash Agada, he says that there's a reason for the Parah Aduma. Did you ever know that there's a reason for the Parah Aduma? The reason is that it says Vayikhu elecha, the Yiddelech took by the Egel. They took the Nizmei Azov, they took all of their jewelry, they brought it to them. And he says, Moshel ben Shivcha shetinef palten shel melech. There was a child of a servant, of a maid. And he made it dirty. He made a mess. So they call the mother and they say, hello, your kid just had an accident. Had an accident in the king's palace. Can you clean up your kid? So too, the Parah Aduma, which is the mother cow, is here to rectify the sin of the egel. So the egel is the child, the Parah Aduma is the mother, and the mother has to clean up the mess of the child. So the egel was when the Yid made a mess, and Parah Aduma is to clean it up. So the question that Bitzkel Vurke and all the masters asked was that, hello, there is a reason. Why are you saying it's a choik? It's so deep. There's a sin called things have to make sense. That's the name of the sin. It's like if I can't see it, it's not true. It's a name of a sin. The whole sin of the ego, and that's the sin that we always struggle with, is that we try to use our minds to control the world around us. So Hashem says, I want things to be a certain way. Our mind automatically kicks in. Our mind is trying to make sense out of things. When we don't listen, first of all, the reason why we don't listen is because our minds tell us it doesn't make sense. And then when it doesn't work out, our mind says, hey, I have a way around it. I can get you what you want, Mapilim Lalos. Or, you can't do this, this is not for you, throw in the towel. Or, okay, don't worry, I got this, I'm going to take control and I'm going to teach you how to go through it. The avoid of the Parah Aduma is that it's a choik, meaning, yes, there's a sin in the world, there's a sin in the Bria saying, I gotta understand this. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm not doing it. That's the sin of the Egel. The sin of the Egel was that the Yiddelch came and they said, there's a structure in place. Moshe Rabbeinu is our leader. He said 40 days. 40 days came, we have no leader. This doesn't work. The system is not working. We must have somebody to tell us what to do. So they made themselves an Egel. That means your mind took over. The ticket on that is the Para Aduma, is when we get you to go through a therapy to do things Para Adumadik. To do things just because Hashem said so. You see this at the end. This is a very important, fundamental idea that until you don't get this, you just don't get it. It's like we struggle our whole lives because our brains are always trying to make sense out of things, but the brain can't free itself. It's like a light switch. It's like an on-off light switch. Like when your brain is on, it's constantly trying to understand what it's doing and how it's doing and how it should be done and taking in data and figuring it out. And Hashem is saying, no, I need you to turn it off. But the second you try to figure it out again, it's on again. So we have to turn it off. We have to go through processes where it turns off. Para Aduma is a process where your brain turns off because it makes no sense. But you do it anyway. Anyway therapy. It's like the whole story with Moshe Rabbeinu, this week's parasha, hitting the rock. He hits a rock. Terrible sin. He loses his greatest dream in his life to go into Eretz Yisrael because he hit a rock. What's the big deal that he hit a rock? First of all, Hashem already in the past told him to hit a rock. And there was another time in the Torah where Moshe Rabbeinu hit a rock and water came. So what's the big deal? So I saw from Rabbi Foreman, if you watch his videos, he has their whole shir on how all the Mayim HaMa'aradim is all the times it relates to Miriam. So Miriam is, Moshe Rabbeinu is called Min HaMayim Mishisiu. Moshe Rabbeinu comes from the water. Miriam is the one who guards him by the water, and all the times there was crisis about water, Miriam is the one who steps in. There's Be'erish on Miriam, and then there's hitting of the rock Miriam. Miriam dies in this week's parsha. The end of the story when she dies is that there's no water. It's a drought. People are going to die from hunger. And Moshe Rabbeinu and all of Klal Yisrael is used to having a Be'erish and Miriam. There's always a water source, a miraculous water source that's connected to Miriam. But it disappeared. What are we going to do now? Automatically, the structure of our minds is that I have to go back to the old pattern. So when Miriam dies, they're mourning for Miriam. Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to reenact, to re-experience the same thing that happened in the past. By Miriam, this is the way it worked. Let's make it work again now too. But it doesn't work that way. Because Hashem says, I need you to have faith in me. The fact that things worked in your life a certain way until today doesn't mean that this is the way it is. I'm the one who made that Miriam should be, and this is the way it worked then. But I'm also here from you that when Miriam's not here, I have a new download that I want to bring. This time you're going to speak to the rock. But we're not used to speaking to the rock. We're used to hitting the rock and water coming. It's very, very difficult for us to give up our minds. And that's the avoid of the Para Aduma. It's something that we have to practice. Many times you ask people, or people bring up this question, like, we don't see any miracles in today's world. Like, where are the miracles? In the Torah, it's full of miracles. Where are the miracles in today's world? If I would see miracles, then I would be serving Hashem in a brand new way. But Hashem never reveals Himself to me. If you look through the Torah, you'll see that all the people who had miracles, the Yidden had many miracles. They had Kriyas Yamsef, they had 10 Makkos, they had everything. The fact that you see an open miracle doesn't change who you are. People see, the whole Torah is not only a story about miracles that God made, it's mostly about stories that after God made the miracles, it didn't accomplish the intended, the desired effect. The Yidden saw they had Makkos, they had Kriyas Yamsef. It still didn't work. And you're looking in the Torah, it's mind-blowing. It's like, hello, you have story after story where people do things wrong, there's immediate consequences, and they still do stuff wrong. So you know why we don't have miracles today? Because miracles don't work. Miracles don't change your life. They're like a wow, but you still have to go through the process where your mind is always going to kick in despite miracles and find a way around it. And the only solution is to go through the Para Aduma therapy. Para Aduma therapy is it's just a way of living. It's just like if you know, all the Hasidic masters were always busy with bittul, being brutal, and there's so many of these tales where you came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told you to do something which was beyond your comprehension, and the person's mind is saying no, it's screaming no, I can't do this. And you have to have a leap of faith. And then your mind kicks in and you say, but how could you have a leap of faith? You know how you can get abused? You can fall into a cult that way. People can manipulate you. It doesn't make any sense. You're going to end up a fundamentalist. You're going to end up crazy. It's very difficult. But the Torah is full of chukim. Chuka chokakti. You know how I'm choykek? You know how I engrave something within you that it should become part of your DNA, of your genetic makeup of who you are? Can you do it as a choik? Could you do it just because I said so? Aval piken. You're not going to get any pleasure for it. You're not going to get any satisfaction. It doesn't make any logical sense. The people around you are going to think you're nuts. Can you do it just because? And in our lives, there's many opportunities that we have that we can do things just because. Think about it. What are the things that come up for you where you can do things just because? Today.